Suzy Wrong, Joy Drive with Dean Warren's film, TV and theatre reviewer.
Suzy Wrong, welcome back to Joy Drive.
So nice to join you on a day of honesty.
We're being totally honest today, Suzy. Tell us, how are you feeling? Be honest, don't sugarcoat
Look,
it.
I am really interested in this conversation that we should be having about anti-vaxxers.
Yes, let's have it.
And I'm really interested in thinking about who in government are responsible for people not being given the right information. You know, I don't know if it's a case of education, like we don't have enough money in education, not enough money at the universities, or not enough resources looking into the way media works in this country.
Are you saying why are these people so dumb?
Okay, we can talk about it that way. And what is it that what is it that we keep people dumb? Sometimes I think we keep people dumb purposely. We think that, all right, if you stop them from going to the universities, then there'll be people that can be controlled easier.
Well,
but clearly it's not working.
No, for the history of all time, across all cultures, there's been the dumbing down of the masses so that they can be controlled, and perhaps they've got just enough knowledge to think that they're being controlled, but not enough to realise that there's a way out. You
know what I think it is? I think it comes down to a lack of critical, clear thinking in our curriculum. And I don't think we can blame universities because not everyone wants to go and do tertiary education. But we certainly learn that skill later in primary school and in high school. And I don't know if it's dropped off the curriculum or not. But what I'm observing is people aren't critically thinking about the information they're being presented. And I'll give you an example. I saw my PT the other day just to say hello. And he is hesitant about getting a vaccine because he sees all this stuff in his Facebook feed from people. I said, well, what sort of people are they? Are they medical people? Oh, there's a few medical people. Where are the medical people from? He shows me one, and it's some discredited doctor from the US. So people aren't looking at the information they're getting and going, okay, where's this coming from? Who's reporting it? Let me do some thinking around it. They're just taking the information from whatever source it's coming from and not questioning it. And that, for me, is what the problem is. We have lost our skill to critically think and evaluate about what information we're receiving. And that's why we're seeing silly people protesting today.
Yeah, look, Facebook has become extremely powerful. And I think we have seen with this pandemic the way that it's controlled the way we live our lives, the way we think, And I think there has to be some way to balance that out. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's any government in the world that has been able to find a way to sort of counter all the misinformation and disinformation that's coming across from Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and all that. But it's a new world, and I think there has to be a pushback with that because it's not getting any better,
Exactly. Yeah. And we've had vaccines. If there weren't vaccines, we'd all have polio. Yeah. And be in iron lungs in the old Fairfield Infectious Diseases Hospital, for goodness sakes. Like, we've accepted them to this point. Why reject them now? It's ridiculous.
On the bright side, in New South Wales, we've hit, over 80% for first vax, which means that, in time we will hit.
That's because you stole all the vows.
Sorry. but what that shows is that people here can be convinced with the right information, and I think it required a really horrible outbreak of the Delta virus, in June for that to happen. But really, people in power needed to have, convinced people, given people the right information without the threat of mass death for real information and for good information to come through. And they're responsible for that, and they need to look into that.
And the other thing is, Suzy, it's also about protecting those who can't be protected. And I was saying this the other day to our legal expert that, people are falling into two camps. They're either, I don't want it for me, I don't want the microchip in me. It's all about me, me, me. And then there's those of us who were saying, well, I'm doing this because someone's kid out there can't have a vaccine, and I don't want to be the one that walks past them in the supermarket and gives them the virus and effectively can kill them. And I think
I
we
wonder
need to
if there is a link between having a Hillsong crazy in, leading the country and people believing that you can put a microchip in your body.
Well, exactly.
Well, he was also in charge of the media, like the marketing campaign, wasn't he? And I think you're right, Susie. I think it was it's not getting the true information out, and the assumption of the political elite that they have educated the masses sufficiently to make a good decision. And I think that this will help us realise that we haven't, and it's a dumbed down American style BS.
And those churches, those fundamental churches, believe that a pandemic and chaos and floods and all this sort of stuff, climate change, is part of God's plan. So I'm uncomfortable with a prime minister who has that as his faith ruling and driving our country. I'm not saying he's made a direct link with it, but I am saying I'm extremely uncomfortable with it.
I think we all.
I think when the evidence is there, it's up to you to draw the connections. But if we are a country that is so comfortable with having crazy religious nut jobs in our leadership positions, we got to be very careful.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we need to get rid of them at the next ballot box.
Did anybody? Did you watch the? I hate to watch the 60 Minutes or any of those shows, but I did watch it because somebody had posted that they did a bit on Hillsong on Sunday. Horrific about alleged sexual abuse within the Hillsong ministries. Terrifying stuff.
Is that what Scott Morrison's with, Hillsong?
Yeah, it's very much his church. His mate, the pastor, Brian.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. That's all about him, and that it's very interesting.
No wonder I prefer rice.
So a couple of months ago, there was a story about ScoMo and the QAnon crazies, and now this is.
That's
story
right.
about
I mean, hello, the lights are flashing.
Yeah.
Alert, alert.
But given that we are still in lockdown, here's a segue for the ages. Given that we are still in lockdown, we've finished all the expensive streaming, and we're back to free to air streaming, and so we've turned to SBS. There's a show called IGGY and Ace. Tell us about it, Susie.
It is a 6-part dramedy totaling 60 minutes, currently streaming on SBS On Demand. It is a story of a young gay man and a young gay woman somewhere in Australia, best of friends bonded not only by their mutual queerness but also by their shared love of alcohol. They party too hard and are a collective mess, and although they don't live an aspirational kind of lifestyle by anyone's standards, IGGY and Ace don't seem particularly unhappy. That is until Ace decides to go sober when he wets himself in bed one night. The duo
did he wee himself in bed?
Well, how many did you watch?
I thought he had a wet dream.
Oh, no. Well, that's quite the wet dream, from what I've heard.
The duo has a serious fallout as a result, and their escalating discord takes us on a sort of examination of our own relationships with alcohol. The series isn't often laugh-out-loud funny, but I did find all the characters engaging, including a host of very colourful, supporting personalities who make the central friendship feel complex and relatable. I don't know if IGGY and Ace is going to change anyone's feelings about drinking, but it does make a lot of great observations about the place of alcohol in our lives and in our friends' lives. It also made me reach for a sample bottle of alcohol-free Sauvignon Blanc that was very kindly included for free in my last Woolies delivery.
Oh.
So she managed to get an ad for Woolies in. Well done. Susie, I hated it. And I don't know... sorry?
Explain.
I think, well, there's a few things at play here. There's the format. I just don't think I can get comfortable with by the time I've got my choc top out and my things and I've sat down on the sofa, the episode's over. I'm like, oh, that's right. This is like, and then you got to watch the credits roll again. So between 9 and 11 minutes. So the short format I find awkward. I think it really impacts the story arc. Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's a conditioning thing that I want a story that arcs in a certain way. But I find these little snippets of comedy, and I also don't like. I mean, I know that I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of, okay, this is queer characters on screen in Australia, diverse backgrounds. Isn't that great? But I didn't like the writing, the acting, the format, or the subject matter.
Even any of it.
I just didn't, and I don't know why. Because I really want there to be great Australian comedy. They're both cute as anything actors, and I'm sure that and I like the fact that they've got a multicultural vibe there. It's like the last one you gave us. I was like, I hated that too, and I don't know why.
I think the unusual thing about this one is that it's about alcohol, which is a very serious thing, in my mind, a very serious thing. But it doesn't sort of have a very clear moral story to it. It kind of doesn't tell you that, oh, it's really bad to be heavily drinking all the time. It kind of skirts around the issue and tries to show that, I don't know if he became happier because he gave up drinking or not. So I think that ambiguity, which maybe was meant to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more unusual, but at the end it sort of feels a bit cold.
Suzy, I watched it, and I watched it expecting that I would get a laugh from it. I really did, and I felt like one. I thought, oh, good, great, we're going to watch a comedy, sit down, get a laugh. I didn't laugh once throughout the whole series, I've got to admit. So I changed my expectation and thought this isn't a comedy. I don't think it should be sold as a comedy whatsoever. And to be honest, I got bored after a few episodes. It's sort of the same thing, with Iggy getting drunk all the time and Ace trying to get off the booze and the whole alcohol meetings. I don't know. There was nothing in it for me. I couldn't wait for each 10-minute episode. They seemed to go for an hour. That's how bored I was with it. I really didn't like it at all. We got a message in from David here in the CBD. He says, Iggy and Ace feels like a greedy, misguided brand throwing a handful of change at an emerging creative and saying it's fine that you're gay on a Mardi Gras float while making fun of addiction and pretty much every letter of the acronym. No LOLs, no sale. I agree, David, 100%. I didn't enjoy it at all. I thought that Iggy looked a bit like Tones and I.
Yeah.
In the way she dressed.
Maybe that's the vibe.
Maybe that's what it is. But no, didn't like it, Suzy, I have to say.
I wonder if the show was lacking in an honesty, now that we are on the theme of honesty.
I
Maybe
think
in the
so.
writing.
And I think that the sponsors
didn't
too.
give us something powerful that comes from the heart. Maybe that's a problem.
Exactly. Now, I don't understand the whole AA step process, but I do understand that you have sponsors, and they made fun of a sponsor who was so thrilled to get another sponsee and had a business card, and I just thought, well, I don't know if you really should be making fun of that process because it's a very serious process and obviously it works for some people. But not funny at all. The first thing I would do is recategorize it as not being a comedy.
I also think that the only one thing I did think was, I'm glad that they've made the female character more repulsive than the male character. Like there's that. They've flipped that, maybe.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of
Did you
abuse
like it?
too, in the two in Iggy and the girlfriend. I mean, the girlfriend seemed quite lovely and switched on, and Iggy was just an absolute abusive bitch towards her. It was like, for goodness sakes, dump her.
I think Warren's in his truth phase, so just roll with it. Suzy, did you like it?
I was disappointed, but I was also very intrigued by how it was so unexpected, because when you hear about, two young Australians and then they're sort of drinking too much and central theme being alcohol, you kind of think that it's going to go somewhere. You wouldn't think that it's not going to be a healthy message at the end. And it's sort of because it didn't want to go to that predictable place, I think it sort of took too many strange turns that made it feel kind of tired. It didn't quite work, unfortunately.
I couldn't see the comedy at all.
Yeah.
But isn't it great that Australian writing and production are getting up and funded and made?
True.
Yeah, I think these shows were made for pre-COVID, like when people were watching things on their phone much more.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like when you're on a train or a bus, maybe they thought, people are watching things in 10-minute bites, so let's do this. And then COVID hit, and then it sort of doesn't make sense.
Maybe the idea is good for a film. Like maybe they can spin it out into something. I think it needs a lot of development, and I think the actors are probably great, and they look like they're having fun doing it. But yeah, I thought,
no,
it's too hard to make.
Painful. Couldn't wait to finish it. What's our homework next week?
It better be a blockbuster because Warren's gonna. What do you got, Suzy? You lost her, Warren. Have we lost you, Suzy? Let me just have a look. No, she's just completely given up on you, Warren. Well, now you're going to die wondering what your homework is.
What's our homework? We'll have to find out.
Do you think she's got like some contract to promote Iggy and Ace? Anyway, the film we're talking about, it's not a film. It's a mishmash of small episodes on SBS On Demand, which is actually great. If you go into SBS On Demand, there's so much great content in there. It's called Iggy and Ace. It's an Australian, well, let's call it a comedy because that's what it's called on the thing.
Let's call it a little 10-minute show to watch to fill in some time during the ironing.
Hey, we've got time